me adjust your view so you can see more of me. Okay, we're diving into the reading for today. War and Peace and Sapiens. Okay. Let me open the book. Okay, I'm just making sure I don't. I was like, where's that sound coming from? But I don't think it's coming from my television. Okay, chapter 4 is where we are with War and Peace. Yeah, Leo, he's just been taking a while to get to the action. We'll see what happens in chapter 4, you all. The Pavlograd Hussars were stationed 2 miles from Branau. The squadron, yeah, it's all battle preparations. The squadron in which Nicholas Rostov served as a cadet was quartered in the German village of Salzneck. Yeah, I'll just try my best with some of these, old terms and stuff like that. Some of it is part of the reason why I'm reading this, because it's helping me learn more, and I'm trying to share that with you all, which is why I'm doing this stream. Okay. The best quarters in the village were assigned to Cavalry Captain Denisov. The squadron commander, known throughout the whole cavalry division as Vaska Denisov. Cadet Rostov, ever since he had overtaken the regiment in Poland, had lived with the squadron commander. Okay. Alright, again, it's like life on the farm. But the name of the book is War and Peace, so hopefully we see some action soon. On October 11th, the day when all was astir at headquarters over the news of Mac's defeat, the camp life of the officers of this squadron was proceeding as usual. As we might recall, the Austrians lost against Napoleon's forces. They were headed up by General Mack. He returns from the battlefield with some signs of battle damage and news of the Austrian defeat, which in turn reflects that Napoleon, the Grand Army, is gaining momentum. Denisov, who had been losing at cards all night, had not yet come home when Rostov rode back early in the morning from a foraging expedition. Rostov, in his cadet uniform with a jerk to his horse, rode up to the porch, swung his leg over the saddle with a supple, youthful movement, stood for a moment in the stirrup as if loath to part from his horse, and at last sprang down and called to his orderly. "Ah, Bondarenko, dear friend," said he to the hussar who rushed up headlong to his horse. "Walk him up and down, my dear fellow," he continued, with that gay brotherly cordiality which good-hearted young people show to everyone when they're happy. Yeah, sadly, I was not that way. For the most part, I was, a cold-hearted cynic. But, I don't know, that might change now that I'm at the point in my life when I'm in my 30s. I'll hopefully be more happier, more outgoing, more, I guess, vibrant and less moody and reserved. But, yeah, we'll see. "Yes, Your Excellency," answered the Ukrainian gaily, tossing his head. "Mind, walk him up and down well." Another hussar also rushed toward the horse, but Bondarenko had already thrown the reins of the snaffle bridle over the horse's head. It was evident that the cadet was liberal with his tips and that it paid to serve him. Rostov patted the horse's neck and then his flank and lingered for a moment. "Splendid. What a horse he will be, he thought with a smile, and holding up his saber, his spurs jingling. He ran up the steps of the porch. His landlord, who in a waistcoat and a pointed cap, pitchfork in hand, was clearing manure from the cowhouse, looked out, and his face immediately brightened on seeing Rostov. Schönen guten Morgen, schönen guten Morgen, he said, winking with a merry smile, evidently pleased to greet the young man. Meaning in English, a very good morning, a very good morning. One thing I like about German is that it's some of the words in their language are similar to our language because they both German and English descend from the same what's it called? It's like ancestor language, I think is the term that I'm looking for. It's like they both descended, English and German, from Latin. So that's why some of the, even though you may not know German, some of the words you can kind of understand their meaning based on how the word sounds. Guten Morgen kind of sounds like good morning. Like, and because of that, I think it's a lot easier for an English speaker to learn German than, say, Japanese or Chinese. Because they both come from the same previous language. Schon flüssig, said Rostov with the same gay brotherly smile which did not leave his eager face. Yeah, and some of that youthful energy you can see in a lot of young people. Probably me now to somewhat a lesser extent. I'm getting older for sure. Yeah, 30 is such a weird age. It's like you're still kind of young and you're not yet old. So it's like, yeah, it's like a weird time to be 30. It's like, how am I supposed to feel? Do I feel like I'm still young or do I feel like I'm getting older? Hock, Ostriker, Hockrussen, Kaiser Alexander Hock, said he, quoting words often repeated by the German landlord. Meaning busy already? Hurrah for the Austrians, hurrah for the Russians, hurrah for Emperor Alexander. So yeah, it seems like Napoleon, based on what we already know, is contending against the Germans, and he had a lot of success there, and now he's contending against Austrians and Russians. And some of these Austrians are rooting for the cause of the Russians. It's kind of like in World War II, it's like the French were happy to see the Americans because it's like, oh, thank goodness, reinforcements, you know? It's like those reinforcements are coming to help us fight these Germans. The German laughed, came out of the cowshed, pulled off his cap, and waving it above his head cried, "Und die Gans will talk." And hurrah for the whole world is what it means. You know, all this kind of reminds me of that Andrew Sister song. It's like, what is it, like Bamir Miss Duchesne or something like that? Let me see if I can look it up so I'm providing an accurate reference. Bamir Miss Duchesne. Yeah. Bamir Miss Duchesne. Check it out. If you have a chance. Andrew Sisters, classic. Anyway, I don't think that, other than the fact that it's in German, it's not particularly related to this, but it does remind me of that a little bit. Some of these German words. Rostov waved his cap above his head like the German and cried laughing, "Und wie weit die Gans wilt." Though neither the German cleaning his cowshed nor Rostov back with his platoon from foraging for hay had any reason for rejoicing, they looked at each other with joyful delight and brotherly love, wagged their heads in token of their mutual affection, and parted smiling. The German returning to his cowshed and Rostov going to the cottage he occupied with Denisov. Again, Leo, so many names, so many characters. "What about your master?" he asked Lavrushka, Denisov's orderly, whom all the regiment knew for a rogue. Hasn't been in since the evening. Must have been losing, answered Lavrushka. I know by now if he wins he comes back early to brag about it, but if he stays out till morning it means he's lost and will come back in a rage. Will you have coffee? Yes, bring some. Yeah, some people, I think it's just natural to like report on your accomplishments, to celebrate your victories and successes, and to become reclusive when life is giving you lemons. 10 minutes later, Lavrushka brought the coffee. He's coming, said he. Now for trouble. Rostov looked out of the window and saw Denisov coming home. Denisov was a small man with a red face, sparkling black eyes, and black tousled mustache and hair. He wore an unfastened cloak, wide breeches hanging down in creases, and a crumpled shako on the back of his head. He came up to the porch gloomily, hanging his head. Lavushka, he shouted loudly and angrily. Take it off, blockhead. Well, I am taking it off, replied Lavrushka's voice. Ah, you're up already, said Denisov, entering the room. Long ago, answered Rostov. I've already been for the hay, and have seen Fraulein Matilda. Really? And I've been losing, Wada. I lost yesterday like a damn fool, cried Denisov, not pronouncing his R's. Such ill luck. Such ill luck. As soon as you... And it's actually pretty funny. Like, I thought that was characteristic of, like, British accents. It's like not pronouncing those R's. Puckering up his face, though smiling, and showing his short, strong teeth. He began with stubby fingers of both hands to ruffle up his thick, tangled black hair. What devil made me go to what? To that what? Sorry, I have such a hard time saying that. And what devil made me go to that what? An officer nicknamed the Rat. He said, rubbing his forehead and whole face with both hands. Just fancy. He didn't let me win a single cod. Not one cod. He took the lighted pipe that was offered to him, gripped it in his fist, and tapped it on the floor, making the sparks fly, while he continued to shout. Yeah, it's like people smoked pipes back in those days. This is before like the advent of cigarettes. And I think that smoking was pretty popular back then. I think it was even more popular than cigarettes in their heyday. Like, practically everyone had a pipe in their mouths. Feel it's one win the singles and collas. It as soon as one doubles it. Gives the singles and snatches the doubles. He scattered the burning tobacco, smashed his pipe, and threw it away. It's like we're still like preparing for war, so like the soldiers are like messing around and like playing games and having fun and stuff. Because yeah, they're getting ready to be shipped off to the battlefield. Then he remained silent for a while, and all at once looked cheerfully with his glittering black eyes at Rostov. If at least we had some women here, but there's nothing for one to do but drink. Yeah, it's like back in those days, there weren't hardly any women soldiers. And yeah, that kind of sucked. Kind of sucked for soldiers. If we could only get to fighting soon. Hello, who's there? He said, turning to the door as he heard a tread of heavy boots and the clinking of spurs that came to a stop, and a respectful cough. The squadron quartermaster, said Lavrushka. Denisov's face puckered still more. Wretched, he muttered, throwing down a purse with some gold in it. Rostov, dear fellow. Just see how much there is left, and shove the purse under the pillow, he said, and went out to the quartermaster. Rostov took the money and mechanically arranging the old and new coins in separate piles, began counting them. Ah, Telyanin, how do you do? They plucked me last night, said Denisov's voice from the next room. Where? At Bykov's, at the Rats. I knew it, replied a piping voice. And Lieutenant Telyanin, a small officer of the same squadron, entered the room. Rostov thrust the purse under the pillow and shook the damp little hand that was offered him. Telyanin, for some reason, had been transferred from the guards just before this campaign. He behaved very well in the regiment, but was not liked. Rostov especially detested him and was unable to overcome or conceal his groundless antipathy to the man. I think there's less security in the guards, so he must not be popular for one reason or another. 200777. Hey, that's lucky if you can hit that in Las Vegas. If I want a ticket to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, would I go? Yeah, I don't see why not. Because if you win, if you make it through every situation of Willy Wonka's, you win the whole factory, right? So why not? Plus I love chocolate, so it's like a win-win for me. But yeah, good question, 777. Yeah, actually, it sounds really cool. You can have like a chocolate fountain. You can drink the chocolate. I guess it would be like pretty bad for you to eat that much, but hey, at least for a short while you're in heaven, right? Well, young cavalryman, how's my Rook behaving? He asked. Rook was the young horse Telyanin had sold to Rostov. The lieutenant never looked the man he was speaking to straight in the face. His eyes continually wandered from one object to another. Sometimes I'm that way too, especially if I'm trying to think of something to say. What I find is that, by looking, instead of looking at the person I'm talking to, by looking at someone else, it helps me look into my own mind. If that makes sense. When I'm looking at someone, they're my focus. And that sometimes makes me talk more about them as my subject, them as the subject of what I'm viewing instead of what the topic is that I'm thinking about. It's my mind has a tendency to, the person I'm speaking to frames my thoughts, if that makes sense. So this is a good example. 777's talking, so I'm focused on what 77's writing. Would I try anything from the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? I would definitely want to try some of the different different lollipops, and that chocolate river looks bomb. I would have to cup and drink some for sure. There's all kinds of cool different treats to try. So I think I'll try at least a few different desserts. And yeah, that chocolate, what was it, chocolate river they had? I'll be all over that. I'll be right back, 777, and anyone else watching, I need to use the bathroom. But thank you for watching as always. Please stand by. am back. And 777, that also kind of reminds me of that's like whatever it's called, like Cave of Wonders or whatever it was called. Like, no one knows which way it's going. Like, I think that would be cool to see, like, just see the Cave of Wonders or whatever the heck it's called. Yeah, I would definitely want to be careful. Careful that I don't fall into the chocolate river. I think I would probably use that strategy, like do a handful at a time, so I don't accidentally like fall into the actual chocolate river. But yeah, it seems cool. Yeah, it's been a while since I've had like any kind of candy, like candy bars. There was just something always so cool about those Willy Wonka candy bars, though. Like, it just makes you want to try one, like, to see what it's like, even if you don't win the golden ticket. The lieutenant never looked the man he was speaking to straight in the face. His eyes continually wandered from one object to another. As I've said, this can help people to gather their thoughts, especially if they're talking about something that's complex or abstract. I saw you riding this morning. He added. He's all right. A good horse, answered Rostov, though the horse for which he had paid 700 rubles was not worth half that sum. He's begun to go a little lame on the left foreleg, he added. The hoof's cracked. That's nothing. I'll teach you what to do and show you what kind of rivet to use. Yes, please do, said Rostov. I'll show you. It's not a secret. And it's a horse you'll thank me for. Then I'll have brought it round, said Rostov, wishing to avoid Telyanin, and he went out to give the order. In the passage, Denisov, with a pipe, was squatting on the threshold facing the quartermaster who was reporting to him. On seeing Rostov, Denisov screwed up his face, and pointing over his shoulder with his thumb to the room where Telyanin was sitting, he frowned and gave a shudder of disgust. Ugh, I don't like that fellow, he said, regardless of the quartermaster's presence. Rostov shrugged his shoulders as much as to say, nor do I, but what's one to do? It's like, hey, we're stationed here. Like, what do you want us to do? Having given his order here, turned to Telyanin. Telyanin was sitting in the same indolent pose in which Rostov had left him, rubbing his small white hands. Well, there certainly are disgusting people, thought Rostov as he entered. It's like, it's life, you gotta live it. It's people, you gotta live with them. Hold on, I was trying to see if there's something on this page I want to comment about. Yeah, horses. I think they got the raw deal. In a lot of these wars, it's like, we're just animals, we don't want to get stabbed and shot. I guess they're a lot of different farm animals today, used for different human applications, and sometimes they get the short end of the stick because of that. Yeah, you're right, 777, but that chocolate river is so big that I think you probably get diabetes or something just trying to drink it all. like there's no way that you can drink all that. Yeah, you get like chocolate logged or something. I don't even know what the expression is for that. When Rostov went back, there was a bottle of vodka and a sausage on the table. Denisov was sitting there scratching with his pen on a sheet of paper. He looked gloomily in Rostov's face and said, I'm writing to her. He leaned his elbows on the table with his pen in his hand, and evidently glad of a chance to say quicker in words what he wanted to write, told Rostov the contents of his letter. You see, my friend, he said, we sleep when we don't love. We are children of the dust. But one falls in love and one is a god. One is pura, as on the first day of creation. I don't know what he was trying to say there. Who's that now? Send him to the devil. I'm busy, he shouted to Larushka, who went up to him, not in the least abashed. Yeah. It is nice to be in love. Too bad, so sad that I'm not that way now. It's like that song is like, it must have been love, but it's over now. Must have been good, but I lost it somehow. Yeah, a lot of my life has been that way. Wonka's Factory. Yeah. It's like oompa loompa doompa dee doo. Yeah, Violet with those blueberries. I think her problem was she just didn't know when to stop. I think a lot of those people were that way. They just didn't know. It's like what is that like? It's kind of like that Indiana Jones movie, like Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, they just have to know what's inside the Ark of the Covenant. And they look and, like, a bunch of ghosts come out and, like, kill everybody. Like, that's kind of like what Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory is like. It's like, some people just don't know when to stop. Like, they don't. Like, they just want to keep eating and eating and eating. And it's kind of like capitalism in a way. It's like there's just all this cool stuff all around you. And it's like you just want to keep eating and eating and eating, and you just don't know when to stop. And yeah, before you know it, you get stuck in a tube or whatever because you get sucked out. Yeah, it's a really good movie. 777, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Okay, where were we? War and Peace. Denisov and Rostov were talking. Who should it be? You yourself told him to come. It's the quartermaster for the money. Denisov frowned and was about to shout some reply, but stopped. Wretched business. Wretched business. He still can't pronounce his R's for some reason. Wretched business, he muttered to himself. How much is left in the purse? He asked, turning to Rostov. 7 new and 3 old Imperials. Oh, it's wretched. What are you standing there for, you scarecrow? Call the quartermaster, he shouted to Lavrushka. Please, Denisov, let me lend you some. I have some, you know, said Rostov, blushing. And what is the importance of these characters? We don't yet know. It's like 2 random soldiers and they're just talking to each other before this huge battle. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully we'll figure out soon what their overall importance is to War and Peace. Don't like bowing. Don't like bowing from my own fellows. I don't, growled Denisov. But if you won't accept money from me like a comrade, you will offend me. Really, I have some, Rostov repeated. It's like, how important is money to them? Probably not that important. Like, I mean, I guess if you need to use that money to buy provisions from the quartermaster, it could be helpful, but it's not going to do you much good if you get, you know, shot by a musket or blown up by artillery fire. So, it's like, you know, I guess. Hold on, I have to lean in to see my chat. It might be better to pull you guys a little bit closer so I can see your chat. I have an idea. Actually, I have a little frame that I could use to set you guys up. If you're a little bit closer, that might make it easier to reply. So let me try that. Hold on a second. Okay. All right. Okay. I think that's a little bit better. You guys are closer. Yeah, exactly 777. I think that like what that movie was about was like practice moderation. Like if you look at Charlie, it's like why did Charlie win? It's because he didn't get out of control and like you know, he didn't try drinking all the chocolate. He wasn't acting like a jerk, like a snooty brat. He was polite, he was respectful, he didn't try eating everything in the chocolate factory. It's almost kind of sad in a way. It's like if anyone else had held themselves to a higher standard, like they could have probably given Charlie a run for his money. And Willy Wonka, it's like it's sad that he didn't have anyone else that he could have had for a like what is it called, like descendant, I guess. I don't know, whoever inherits your estate. Yeah, it's kind of sad that was the case, but Charlie inherited it, so there you go. Okay, where were we? Yeah, for some reason Rostov is dead set on giving Denisov money. No, I tell you. And Denisov went to the bed to get the purse from under the pillow. Where have you put it, Rostov? Under the lower pillow. It's not there. Denisov threw both pillows on the floor. The purse is not there. That's a miracle. Maybe someone stole it. Yeah, it's like one of those things. It's like you just gotta be careful where you leave your wallet, because someone might try to take it when you're not looking. Yeah, actually, funny story about that. Way back in the day when I was working on night stock crew, I brought a jacket in because it was cold at night. I worked at night time, and it was the morning time by the time the store started opening, and I had to take my jacket off because I was working, and I left it there on the aisle. And I went somewhere, and by the time I came back, it was totally gone. I'm like, yeah, that's just how it is. Sometimes people will take stuff from you. Yeah, Charlie was like an example, I think, of what everyone should try to be. Like responsible and kind. It's kind of like Animal Farm in a way, that movie, Charlie and the, or Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's like, it's a movie designed to tell a story, right? It's like a moral in the story. Okay. Wait, haven't you dropped it? Said Rostov, picking up the pillows one at a time and shaking them. Yeah, someone probably stole it. Especially when there were so many soldiers around and stuff like that. Like, anyone could have taken it. Like, absolutely anyone could have taken it. He pulled off the quill and shook it. The purse was not there. Dear me, can I have forgotten? No, I remember thinking that you kept it under your head like a treasure, said Rostov. I put it just here. Where is it? He asked, turning to Lavrishka. Yeah, you just had to be careful about that thing because the ecstasy of gold will make people take anything that even remotely resembles a wallet or purse if left unattended. Yeah, human kindness can be hard to come by sometimes. I haven't been in the room. It must be where you put it. But it isn't? You're always like that. You throw a thing down anywhere and forget it. Feel in your pockets. No, if I hadn't thought of it being a treasure, said Rostov, but I remember putting it there. Well, apparently it wasn't that good of a hiding spot, because someone found it. Lavrishka turned all the bedding over, looked under the bed and under the table, searched everywhere, and stood still in the middle of the room. Denisov silently watched Lavrishka's movements, and when the latter threw up his arms in surprise, saying it was nowhere to be found, Denisov glanced at Rostov. Excuse me. Rostov, you've not been playing schoolboy Twix. Yeah, dude, I don't know. Like, unless someone saw you put it there. Either someone saw you put it there and or it wasn't a good hiding spot. Rostov felt Denisov's gaze fixed on him, raised his eyes, and instantly dropped them again. All the blood, which had seemed congested somewhere below his throat, rushed to his face and eyes. He could not draw breath. And there hasn't been anyone in the room except the lieutenant and yourselves. It must be here somewhere, said Lavrishka. Now then, you devil's puppet, look alive and hunt for it, shouted Denisov, suddenly turning purple and rushing at the man with a threatening gesture. If the purse isn't found, I'll flog you. I'll flog you all. Rostov, his eyes avoiding Denisov, began buttoning his coat, buckled on his saber, and put on his cap. I must have that purse, I tell you, shouted Denisov, shaking his orderly by the shoulders and knocking him against the wall. It's like, I think, like, what I would say is, like, if it's that freaking valuable, put it somewhere you know it's not going anywhere. It's kind of like the pocket watch in Pulp Fiction. It's like, and Butch goes, like, completely bonanza because his grandfather's lucky pocket watch, what happened to it? Like, oh, it got left somewhere. It got left in, like, the hotel or something. It's like, yeah, if it's that important to you, put it in your pocket. You know, or somewhere you know it's not going anywhere. As soon as you let it out of your sight, it's like, yeah, someone could take it. And yeah, I don't know. Like I'm saying, at the same time, I think it's like you guys are getting ready to fight in a war. Like, I think Leo's like kind of doing some satire here or something. It's like he's commentating on the what's it called, like, fixation that people have over material wealth. It's like it's not really going to do that much good once you're fighting in the war. It's like, you know, it's like you should be getting ready to fight a battle. Anything that you have that's like money and money related should be sent home or something like that, or put, you know, I don't know, preferably you don't have that kind of stuff with you as you're heading into war, because it's just one more thing for you to worry about. You don't really want to worry about anything when you're going to the battlefield. You really only want to worry about staying alive. Like, I think that's your main goal. Yeah, 777. It's like moderation is key, is what that is telling you. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That's exactly what the movie's about. It's like, don't go overboard with the chocolate, or you might get diabetes, and before you know it, your toes are falling off and you're in constant pain because you ate too much chocolate when you were younger. Yeah, it's extremely messed up in real life. Yeah, it's extremely messed up. But it's one of those things. It's like you want to eat the candy bar because it tastes good. It's one of the best things in life, but too many of them, and before you know it, you're, in a horrible condition. Then is all. Let him alone. I know who's taking it, said Rostov, going toward the door without raising his eyes. Denisov paused, thought a moment, and evidently understanding what Rostov hinted at, seized his arm. Nonsense, he cried, and the veins on his forehead and neck stood out like cords. You are mad, I tell you. I won't allow it. The purse is here. I'll flay this scoundrel alive, and it will be found. I know who is taking it, repeated Rostov in an unsteady voice, and went to the door. And I tell you, don't you dare to do it, shouted Denisov, rushing at the cadet to restrain him. But Rostov pulled his arm away with as much anger as though Denisov were his worst enemy. Firmly fixed his eyes directly on his face. Do you understand what you're saying? He said in a trembling voice. There is no one else in the room except myself. So that if it is not so, then he cannot finish and ran out of the room. May the devil take you and everybody. Were the last words Rostov heard. I don't know. It's one of those things. It's like, who's really to blame here? Is it Rostov or is it Denisov for not putting it in a more secure place? I don't know. Could be more so Denisov's fault for not putting it in his pocket. But yeah, sometimes the world's just a screwed up place. It's like, hey, someone swiped it. What are you gonna do? Okay. Alrighty. But anyway, Rostov went to Telyanin's quarters. The master's not in. He's gone to headquarters, said Telyanin's orderly. Has something happened? He added, surprised at the cadet's troubled face. No, nothing. You've only just missed him, said the orderly. Headquarters were situated 2 miles away from Salzanek, and Rostov, without returning home, took a horse and rode there. There's an inn in the village, which the officers frequented. Rostov rode up to it and saw Telyanin's horse at the porch. In the second room of the inn, the lieutenant was sitting over a dish of sausages and a bottle of wine. You come here too, young man, he said, smiling and raising his eyebrows. Yes, said Rostov, as if it cost him a great deal to utter the word. He sat down at the nearest table. Both were silent. There were 2 Germans and a Russian officer in the room. No one spoke, and the only sounds heard were the clatter of knives and munching of the lieutenant. When Telyanin had finished his lunch, he took out of his pocket a double purse, and drawing its rings aside with his small white, turned up fingers, drew out a gold imperial, lifting his eyebrows, and gave it to the waiter. Is it the case that Telyanin stole the purse? Maybe. Please be quick, he said. The coin was a new one. Rostov rose and went up to Telyanin. Allow me to look at your purse, he said, in a low, almost inaudible voice. With shifting eyes, but eyebrows still raised, Telyanin handed him the purse. Yes, it's a nice purse. Yes, he said, growing suddenly pale, and added, Look at it, young man. Rostov took the purse in his hand, examined it and the money in it, and looked at Telyanin. The lieutenant was looking about in his usual way, and suddenly seemed to grow very merry. If we get to Vienna, I'll get rid of it there, but in these wretched little towns, there's nowhere to spend it, said he. Well, let me have it, young man, I'm going. Rostov did not speak. And you? Are you going to have lunch too? They feed you quite decently here, continued Telyanin. Now then, let me have it. He stretched out his hand to take hold of the purse. Rostov let go of it. Telyanin took the purse and began carelessly slipping it into the pocket of his riding breeches, with his eyebrows lifted and his mouth slightly open, as if to say, yes, I'm putting my purse in my pocket, and that's quite simple and is no one else's business. It's like, is it... I don't know, maybe it actually is the purse of Denisov. Maybe it is. Like, Rostov's all paranoid now. He's like, that the one? Is that his wallet that was stolen? Dun 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 dun. Some flash as an electric spark shot from Tillion's eyes to Rostov's and back. Back again in an instant. Come here, said Rostov, catching hold of Tillion's arm and almost dragging him to the window. That money is Denisov's. You took it, he whispered just above Tillion's ear. What? How dare you? What? Said Tillionin. Yeah, I don't know. I'd say that's the bad thing about, like, some things that go missing. It's like sometimes they all look the same. It's like all the purses and wallets look the same. So next time you see a purse or wallet and one has gone missing, you're probably going to think that that's the one that was stolen. Like, it's like, hey, that's the one. You're the one who took it. It's kind of like that episode of SpongeBob SquarePants with the lost dime. Like, Mr. Krabs lost his dime, and he's like, someone took my dime. It's like the exact same one. It's the exact same thing. It's like you just get, like, completely paranoid, and all of a sudden, like, everyone's an enemy. You don't know who stole your dime. And in reality, it was, like, in your pocket the entire time. But who knows in Denisov's case where this dang purse might have been, no one knows. But these words came like a piteous, despairing cry and an entreaty for pardon. As soon as Rostov heard them, an enormous load of doubt fell from him. He was glad, and at the same instant began to pity the miserable man who stood before him, but the task he had begun had to be completed. Heaven only knows what people here may imagine, muttered Tillionin, taking his cap and moving toward a small empty room. You must have an explanation. I know it, and shall prove it, said Rostov. Every muscle of Tillionin's pale, terrified face began to quiver. His eyes still shifted from side to side, but with the downward look not rising to Rostov's face, and his sobs were audible. Count, don't ruin a young fellow. Here's this wretched money. Take it. He threw it on the table. I have an old father and mother. Rostov took the money, avoiding Tillionin's eyes, and went out of the room without a word. But at the door he stopped and retraced his steps. Oh God, he said with tears in his eyes. How do you do it? Count, said Tillionin, drawing near to him. Don't touch me, said Rostov, drawing back. If you need it, take the money. And he threw the purse in and ran out of the inn. Yep, that was War and Peace, y'all. Chapter 4, Book 2. And we're trying to figure out what happened to Denisov's lost purse. Did Tillionin steal it? Who knows? It's not even going to do you any good if you get shot by a cannon. But we'll have to see if that's what happens in the next chapter. I don't think so. 777. Am I gonna imagine myself as a blimp riding around Willy Wonka's chocolate factory? No. I think that I will. These are the things I'd most likely do when I'm there at the factory. Like, I would like to try out the chocolate, see the Cave of Wonders or Mysteries or whatever the heck it's called, and I don't know. I don't think there's much else I would like to do. Okay, so that was War and Peace. Sometimes I just wonder how Leo comes up with these stories. It's like the case of the missing purse. Where did it go? Alrighty. Were any acknowledgements of the sapiens? So, yeah, I think we're actually done with sapiens. He just has a bunch of references at the end now. Alright. Well, we could start with crime and punishment instead. I have a lot of different options. Velveteen, rabbits. Wind in the Willows, Paradise Lost. Okay. I have to use the bathroom again too. Household Tales by Brothers Grimm we also have. I think I'm more in the mood for that one. Household Tales. Okay, let's see, where are we? Alright, the Frog King of Iron Henry. We'll tackle it when we get back. Space. Come on, there you go. Be right back. I am back. Let's see if you guys back. Here we go. Okay. Okay. I think I can see everything. Oh, everything on my stream anyway. Frog King or Iron Henry. Household Tales by the Brothers Grimm. Okay. How long is this anyway? I don't think it's that long at all. Yeah, so I might just do one chapter at a time. Yeah, Sapiens raised some pretty interesting questions, and hopefully you all enjoy Household Tales. We also can consider other series. Yeah, just let me know if you have a preference in one way or another. Seems like 777's talking a lot about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, so I don't know, maybe somehow we can explore more about the Chocolate Factory. Yeah. I think the main reason why we don't have a real one of those is because I think a lot of it would just like, there'd be like a lot of bugs and stuff eating all the chocolate. A lot of other animals would be trying to eat it too. I think. Yeah, I think that there would be a lot of other animals trying to eat the candy too. It kind of reminds me of those like mall candy stores where they have like a lot of the different candies and stuff. Yeah, I don't normally go into those. But sometimes I will go into Cinnabon. Okay, here's Frog King or Iron Hunter. In old times, when wishing still helped one, there lived a king whose daughters were all beautiful. Yeah, nowadays I guess you can wish upon a star, but that star, it doesn't shine. But the youngest was so beautiful that the sun itself, which has seen so much, was astonished whenever it shone in her face. Whoa, she must have been quite a sight. Um, hmm. Yeah, 777. I don't know who I would take with me to the chocolate factory. I don't know. I'd have to win first, right? And winning is pretty darn hard when odds are stacked against you like that. At this point in my life, I'd probably just have a candy bar. you know, I'll just have the chocolate bar, and then there wouldn't be a gold ticket inside. But that's just how life goes sometimes, you know. Sometimes you get the golden ticket, sometimes you just get a candy bar. But we can dream of the day when we might get the golden ticket. Close by the king's castle is a great dark forest, and under an old lime tree in the forest was a well. And when the day was very warm, the king's child went out into the forest and sat down by the side of the cool fountain. And when she was dull, she took a golden ball and threw it up on high and caught it. And this ball was her favorite plaything. Now it so happened that on one occasion the princess's golden ball did not fall into the little hand which she was holding up for it, but onto the ground beyond and rolled straight into the water. The king's daughter followed it with her eyes, but it vanished, and the well was deep, so deep that the bottom could not be seen. On this she began to cry, and cried louder and louder, and could not be comforted. As thus she lamented, someone said to her, "What ails thee, king's daughter? Thou weepest so that even a stone would show pity." It seems like a common theme from today's readings are things that are lost. Like Denisov's lost purse, the king's youngest daughter's golden ball. Yeah, maybe 777. I think the worst thing about becoming a blueberry is you need to change yourself back. It's like, hopefully they don't stay like that forever, right? Because that'd be pretty messed up if that was the case. Close by the king's castle. Okay, I already read that. Yeah, we're at the bottom of the page now. She looked around to the side from whence the voice came and saw a frog stretching forth its thick, ugly head from the water. "Ah, old water splasher, is it thou?" said she. "I am weeping for my golden ball, which has fallen into the well." "Be quiet and do not weep," answered the frog. "I can help thee, but what wilt thou give me if I bring up thy plaything again?" "Whatever thou wilt have, dear frog," said she, "my clothes, my pearls, and my jewels, and even the golden crown which I'm wearing." Dang, so she must like that golden ball a lot. I don't know, depending on how deep the well is, she might be able to go in there and get it, but she needs like a rope or something like that. Maybe she can ask her sisters for some help on that. I don't know, maybe the frog is the easiest way, who knows. The frog answered, "I do not care for thy clothes, thy pearls and jewels, or thy golden crown, but if thou wilt love me, and let me be thy companion and playfellow, and sit by thee at thy little table, and eat of thy little golden plate, and drink of thy little golden cup, and sleep in thy little bed. If thou wilt promise me this, I will go down below, and bring thee thy golden ball up again. Dang. So it looks like all the frog wanted was a friend. Who knows? Oh yes, said she, I promise thee all thou wishest, if thou wilt but bring me my ball back again. She, however, thought, how the silly frog does talk. He lives in the water with the other frogs and croaks, and can be no companion to any human being. Well, yeah, I mean, how is it the case that you can even understand what this frog is saying? Frog's like, like, actually, I don't even think frogs croak, right? I think that's toads that croak. Do frogs even make sounds? I think they actually do ribbit, frogs. But, yeah, I think she's right. Maybe she's gonna try to trick this frog or something. Maybe she's gonna try to trick it. Yeah, 777. Maybe just an hour. You'd stay at Blueberry. Yeah, hopefully not a long time though, because I mean you can't even move around when you're like that. Like the Oompa Loompas have to push you around for you to be able to move. So yeah. Again, I think that the point of that movie is to tell you, like, try to keep things reasonable. I don't know. That doesn't really seem like a good movie. Like, it's not really a movie that... I think it's more so about, like, times of good fortune. Like, whenever you're doing extremely well in your life, like, that's a good movie to watch. If you're, like, struggling through life and you're like Rocky, I don't think it's a good movie to relate to. Yeah, when you have a lot of nice things all around you, that's a good movie. Yeah, 777. Maybe, yeah, if your friend turns into a blueberry, you could roll them around. But, I mean, you have to look at the reason why that happened. Like, Violet was... I think she was eating too much, right? She was eating too many blueberries. Okay, where were we? The frog, when he received this promise, put his head into the water and sank down. And in a short while came swimming up again with the ball in his mouth and threw it on the grass. The king's daughter was delighted to see her pretty plaything once more and picked it up and ran away with it. Wait, wait, said the frog. Take me with thee. I can't run as thou canst. But what did it avail him to scream his croak after her as loudly as he could? She did not listen to it, but ran home and soon forgot the poor frog, who was forced to go back into his hole again. So yeah, she tricked him. The frog got tricked. She's like, haha, thanks, sucker. Let's see what the frog does in response. Yeah, I would say just be careful, 777, you don't eat too many blueberries. in reality, blueberries are pretty good for you, so maybe a few a day aren't going to hurt you all that much. The next day, when she had seated herself at the table with the king and all the courtiers, and was eating from her little golden plate, something came creeping splish-splash, splish-splash, up the marble staircase. When it had got to the top, it knocked at the door and cried, "Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me." She ran to see who was outside, but when she opened the door, there sat the frog in front of it. Then she slammed the door to, in great haste, sat down to dinner again, and was quite... We didn't turn the page. And was quite frightened. The king saw plainly that her heart was beating violently and said, "My child, what art thou so afraid of? Is there perchance a giant outside who wants to carry thee away?" "Ha, no," replied she. "It is no giant, but a disgusting frog." "Is she going to get her just rewards?" "Maybe." "What does a frog want with thee?" "Ah, dear father, yesterday as I was in the forest sitting by the well playing, my golden ball fell into the water, and because I cried so, the frog brought it out again for me, and because he so insisted, I promised him he should be my companion. But I never thought he would be able to come out of his water, and now he's outside there and wants to come in to me." In the meantime, it knocked a second time and cried, "Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me. Dost thou not know what thou saidst to me yesterday by the cool waters of the fountain? Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me." Then said the king, "That which thou hast promised must thou perform. Go and let him in." It's like you gotta stick to your word. What's the moral of the story is. She went in and opened the door, and the frog hopped in and followed her step by step to her chair. There he sat and cried, "Lift me up beside thee." She delayed until at last the king commander had her do it. When the frog was once on the chair, he wanted to be on the table, and when he was on the table, he said, "Now, push thy little golden plate nearer to me, that we may eat together." She did this, but it was easy to see that she did not do it willingly. The frog enjoyed what he ate, but almost every mouthful she took choked her. At length he said, "I have eaten and am satisfied. Now I am tired. Carry me into thy little room and make thy little silken bed ready, and we will both lie down and go to sleep." Again, she probably should have just put a ladder in that well or something, or been more careful in the first place. The king's daughter began to cry, for she was afraid of the cold frog which she did not like to touch, and which was now to sleep in her pretty clean little bed. But the king grew angry and said, "He who helped thee when thou wert in trouble ought not afterwards to be despised by thee. A friend in need is a friend indeed." So she took hold of the frog with 2 fingers, carried him upstairs, and put him in the corner. When she was in bed, he crept up to her and said, "I am tired. I want to sleep as well as thou. Lift me up, or I will tell thy father." Then she was terribly angry, took him up, and threw him with all her might against the wall. "Now thou wilt be quiet, odious frog," said she. When he fell down, he was no frog, but a king's son, with beautiful kind eyes. He, by her father's will, was now her dear companion and husband. Then he told her how he had been bewitched by a wicked witch, and how no one could have delivered him from the well but herself, and that tomorrow they would go together into his kingdom. Then they went to sleep, and next morning when the sun woke them, a carriage came driving up with 8 white horses, which had white ostrich feathers on their heads, and were harnessed with golden chains. Behind stood the young king's servant, Faithful Henry. Faithful Henry had been so unhappy when his master was changed into a frog, that he had caused 3 iron bands to be laid around his heart, lest it should burst with grief and sadness. The carriage was to conduct the young king into his kingdom. Faithful Henry helped them both in, and placed himself behind again, and was full of joy because of this deliverance. When they had driven him part way, the king's son heard a cracking behind him as if something had broken. So he turned round and cried, "Henry, the carriage is breaking." No, master, it's not the carriage. It is a band from my heart, which was put there in my great pain when you were a frog and imprisoned in the well. Again and once again, while they were on their way, something cracked, and each time the king's son thought the carriage was breaking, but it was only the bands which were springing from the heart of faithful Henry because his master was set free and was happy. Alright, what does that remind me of? It's like the, what is it, Tangled, or yeah, Frog Prince. It was made into a Disney movie. I think at some point. But it was originally by the Brothers Grimm. Yo. And the moral of the story seems to be uphold your promises, and let's see what else. Yeah, stay true to your word, and yeah, a friend in need is a friend indeed. So he helped the princess when she threw her ball down the well, and she had to honor her promise. Okay. Alrighty, thank you all for watching. 777, thank you for watching. Thank you for your chat. Thank you for any follows and supporting the show. Storm Show, signing out.